Here we are on the episode 24 of Making a Marketer podcast. I am Megan Powers with Powers of Marketing, and I have, hey, Stephanie. Let me see. No, the other way. Mirrored, right? She's over there for me. Stephanie Liu, which actually, what's funny is I'm glad we didn't talk about this before, but last time I saw you in person, you said you just learned that your last name is actually pronounced a different way.
Okay, like the proper way to pronounce it is Leo, right? But I've always pronounced it as Lou. And even when my husband introduced himself to me, he said Lou. And so when my in-laws were like, it's actually Leo. And I was like, oh, snap. Like how many like Facebook Live episodes and podcasts have I done like of me actually saying it the wrong way? And so I asked you and I asked like a bunch of other friends, like, should I start pronouncing it the other way? Like, no, just stick with it. Like that's how you roll. And I was like, that's right. So Stephanie Liu, you got it.
For me, that's funny because it's more like a selfish thing because I have a really hard time calling people by something other than what I met them as.
Yeah.
It's like really hard. My nephew was born Kip. He was Kip forever. Now he wants to be his proper name, Kevin, and I can't do it.
Oh, yeah, that is kind of hard. That's for sure. That is hard.
I'm trying to rock. I was rocking a little Halloween for the October. Considered something, but
Yeah. That's why I was playing around with the Snap camera, because you could put like a Frankenstein augmented reality filter and just like be ridiculous with it.
That's so fun. Okay, we'll dig into that a little bit, but I do want to just a couple things. I want to give your intro, your bio, and say thank you to those of you who are tuning in live, and to those who are listening to the replay, whether it be on Facebook or on YouTube or listening on the podcast, because this gets put onto the podcast, the audio only. So, thank you all for being here for episode 24. On live video, talking live video. We've had one other live video show. It's like, how else could we do it? I couldn't have this be just an audio show. There's no way. So I want to give you a little, I can't imagine anybody who doesn't know who you are.
Oh, stop.
I'm going to give a little intro. Okay. So Stephanie is a social media strategist and the host of Lights, Camera Live, a live video show that airs the first and third Thursdays of every month at 2 p.m. on Facebook. And we'll have you give that URL at the end of the show. The show shines a spotlight on the best and brightest marketers to help small business owners take their business from unknown to unforgettable. I love that. And she also provides live video coaching to help entrepreneurs turn their ideas, skills, and experience into captivating live stream. So 2 times a week, like that's aggressive. That's amazing.
Oh, 2 times a month. 2 times a month.
Okay.
First and third. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I did. I just read it and I didn't even, yeah. So 2 times a month that's about what I'm doing with the 1 hour show. And then this, I'm not doing live twice. But then you're also recording all sorts of tutorials and all that kind of good stuff. So, and we'll talk about how everyone can kind of find that. So this will be like a little snack. This will be like a little appetizer for all the awesome stuff that you're doing out there. So my first question, I want to just ask you, cause live video is hot, right? I'm like, I have a client, San Diego State, the hospitality and tourism management program at San Diego State. And I broadcasted a session they did live talking about their new meetings and events master's program at a conference a couple weeks ago. And it's got tons of engagement, tons of views, like almost 800 views. And they're just like blown away. And I said, that's the thing about live video. Like it gets magnified. It got shared a ton of times too. So then there was a lot of viral views on it. So anyway, so just tell us about how you dug in to live
streaming. Well, it was funny because you know me from back in the days of working at the agency. So I've been a part of the agency advertising world for like the past decade and a half, right? And it was when my husband and I realized that, hey, we're pregnant. We're going to be bringing a new human being into this world. I was like, oh, crap. Like, I can't be working 50 plus hours in the agency world. So let me start planting the seeds for me to go off on my own. And so when I started my own, boutique social media agency, I came to realize that everyone was calling themselves a social media strategist. And I was like, wait a second, wait a second. You know, like I've been in the agency world and I've been doing this and I've been doing that. Like, why is everyone else calling themselves a strategist? Because that is just such, you know, a hard to reach role when you're in the agency world. So I was like, all right, well, instead of just calling myself that, I'd rather jump in front of the camera and show you how and why I'm a strategist. So I would peel back the curtain. I would really just show people this is my content calendar. These are the analytics that I dive into, all of that good stuff. And what I started to realize was that when I started live streaming in 2016, as soon as you went live, anyone that was connected to you got a notification, right? So for someone that was just launching their own boutique social media agency and being connected in the agency world, all of a sudden, old clients, old colleagues, right? We're like, hey, Megan, like, what are you doing right now? Like, I've seen you're doing this cool new thing. Are you looking for clients? And it became like my number one referral engine. And then ever since then, I just dove into it. Like, how can I make my live streams better? How can I go ahead and create a funnel? And then ever since then, it just kind of blew up into this thing of like, if you want to learn live streaming, then you go ask Stephanie. And I was like, cool, I'm down with that.
Yeah, totally. Well, and you spoke at Social Media Day San Diego, probably this last one too, but I saw you, I wasn't there. I was at the previous year.
Yeah.
And you were so awesome. And I remember saying after that time, like social media marketing world needs to have you speak. And then you didn't the next one, but now you are, right?
I am, yeah. So that's kind of like, that's like the Super Bowl of social media conferences. I was like, holy crap, like just live streaming has been able to like, from a personal brand perspective, just open doors. I actually had someone who used to work at TMZ hit me up today and they're like, hey, I want to talk to you about this whole live streaming thing. And I was like, wait a second.
Z. Dang. Hi, Jen. Jen's with us. Yay. Jen Cole.
Hey, Jen Cole. So good to see you.
Co-host on the long shows. Thanks for being here from Wichita. Wow, that's cool. So they're not at TMZ anymore, but they want to like just what?
Yeah. So here's what's also really interesting about live streaming. Some people, they want to live stream, but they don't want to deal with the tech of it, right? This is like the conversation that you and I were having in the green room where some people are like, dude, I just want to hop in front of the camera and then have someone else deal with the tech. And so we're now in discussions about this new service called Remote Live Producer, where I handle everything in terms of branding your show, your intro, your outro, your comments, promoting it and whatnot. And all you really have to do is just sit in front of the camera, turn on your lights, make sure your mic is working, and then I handle the rest from there. So that way, as an entrepreneur, you don't have to worry about like, oh my God, is my keynote showing? Yada, yada, yada. You're just, all right, cool, I'm on, let's hit the road and like get this going. And
right.
The team was like, yeah, let's do that. Let's test it out. So I was like, yeah.
That's amazing. I love that. Fantastic. Wow. Okay. So you kind of already talked about how it's grown your business, but I mean, would you say like what percentage of clients do you think that you have that you've gotten from the
live stream itself? My gosh, I would say like 90% of new clients are coming from the live stream. So either they're watching it live themselves, or they're watching the replays, or they're watching the snippets because you should repurpose your content. They're watching the repurposed content on YouTube and then finding their way back to me. And it's funny because some people are just like, well, I don't see those comments in the actual comments of the live stream. I'm like, no, because all the magic is happening in the inbox. Because at that point, they feel like they know you, right? They're like, hey, I'm digging your style, the way you communicate and whatnot. And so they just feel comfortable in sliding into the DMs and be like, hey, I want to work on a project with you. And I was just like, I'm all about that.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's interesting because for me, I worked in the meetings and event space for a long time, and face-to-face, like that's my jam. And so this is another version of that, right? Yeah. And I got like I was in sales, and 90% of my business was from a $2.5 million book of business, and 90% of it was from relationships I established in person, face-to-face. Mm-hmm. So, even did my master's on online versus face-to-face, which would be another interesting research thing about like face-to-face being this, right? And how it's not the same because you can't shake a hand, you can't give a hug.
You can give a high five.
It's still like a step up though, right? From just talking on the phone. That's like even when we do the hour-long audio-only shows, we're on Zoom so that we can see each other, because it's so much easier to communicate, to take cues on what you should, who should talk when, and all that kind of stuff when you can see each other, versus just being on the phone or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the communication that happens these days, a lot of it is nonverbal, right? So like you could be trying to pitch a client and they're just like, okay, you're like, wait a second, no, you should be nodding your head when I say that, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot that happens on camera that you could pick up on to see if people are really resonating with your message, especially your guest. And they could see how confident you are on camera. If you're confident on camera, then for sure they're like, I'm going to hand you my book of business, and then see how it rolls from there.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And I had a client, we did a discovery meeting last week, and he said, Did you get your degree in psychology? I feel like you get me. Like, I feel like you have my number like right away. And I was trying to think of how, because based on some things that I said, but I think more of it was like how I was reacting to what he was saying, and that kind of thing was pretty funny. I was like, nope. And he was all, okay, then when you sold, we like, I know this is the kind of person that they are, so I'm going to talk to them this way. I'm like, no, it's intuitive way to talk to people, I guess. I don't know.
That's funny. So I guess he's more into the psychology piece of it, and you're just like, it just comes to me naturally. Hey.
Yeah. Well, and then we got talking about ENTJ, TJ, and I, like Myers-Briggs and all that kind of stuff, which was really funny. How the whole course of that conversation went. It was interesting. And he's like, okay, so if you're ENTJ, you're a field marshal. I'm like, wait, what? And then he went into this whole thing about the descriptions of the type of people are. And so I'm like, I guess I need to brush up on my Myers-Briggs.
No, he's just really, really into it. And if that's the case, and if he finds that your personality meshes well with his, then hey, that's like the best thing that you could ask for in a client, right?
Yeah, totally. Well, and he's an attorney too, which I thought was really like a squishy way to approach being an attorney, right? But he's,
Oh, you felt that it was too woo-woo. Hey, you're a lawyer. This is
no, not at all. It just surprised me. It just surprised me a little bit. So yeah. So okay. So I love all the tweet chats and all the live video that I see. As we know, there's so much content out there, and it's so hard to consume it all. But I do feel like I tend to hear some of the same stuff on your Twitter Smarter Chat. I learned a lot of new stuff that you did with Madeline recently.
Fun. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was hoping that we could like give at least, I'm sure there'll be more, but like at least one nugget. Like, what would your number one tip be for someone who, that we haven't heard before, for someone who wants to get started doing live shows beyond the press the button, beyond all that kind of stuff? What's like the number one piece of advice you would give someone?
I think the number one piece of advice for someone that wants to start live streaming is, when you are live streaming, pretend as if you're talking to one person. Like, I'm staring deep into this camera. It feels like I'm looking at you one-on-one, and I'm acting as if you're a best friend that I haven't seen forever, right? Like, that whole personality, that aura is going to come through on top of the camera. But if I were just like, oh, hi, we've never met before, it feels really awkward, and that comes across camera. And I don't think people really realize that, right? Like, having clients like Chef Claudia Sandoval, having her on camera, like, she's already like this bigger, gracious personality, right? But when she's on camera, like, it's on a whole different level. And I think that's what some people have to realize, is that when you're live streaming, you have to take it up a whole nother launch. Like, you and I were even talking about what it's like to be on stage, right? So if you just went on stage as if you were talking in a regular conversation, it's like, wait a second, like, you have to motivate the masses at that point. And so looking at the camera, acting as if that person who's watching is your best friend, Jen Cole, hey girl, what's up? Then it comes like, it becomes so much more fun and easier versus, hey, I have to memorize the script and hit this and hit that.
Right. Totally. That's great. That's a great piece of advice. And I think, one thing we're doing this at a time that isn't normal. Not like I get a ton of live viewers anyway, because it's once a month, and it's hard to, I think, like grab a crowd. Plus, like I said, so much content. So what would you say to someone who says, oh, I'm discouraged by how few people I have actually watching live?
Yeah. Okay. So I would say that really boils down to your pre-promotion strategy, right? So basics of marketing, if you're going to be holding some type of event, you want to raise awareness beforehand, hand, right? Like, don't just rely on Facebook to send out notifications to pull people in there. Start to let people know what your episode is going to be about. Like, what are 3 things that you're going to learn today? So, like, for those of you that are watching right now, Megan's going to ask me all these questions about live video. So if you've been like, straddling that fence in terms of like, how do I get started? Which platform should I use? And what do I say? Then those are the 3 things that you're going to learn today, right? So I think if you position that way, then people are like, okay, this is exactly what I needed. This is what I needed to hear. So I'm going to block out time in my calendar. If it's one of those things where you're just relying on the notifications to go out for you, then it's just like, okay, you're speeding down the highway and you're hoping someone is going to stop, right? So in this, I'd rather be like on your way to Las Vegas and you see every single billboard that says, go to this casino, casino, win big, right? Like, I want that to be like the runway for when my show launches.
Nice. Yeah. And having said that, I did not do a great job with promoting this because I didn't know when we were going to be able to do it. So for those who are interested, I had jury duty today, and I'd originally scheduled this last week, and then I had rescheduled to today, and then I realized I had jury duty. So anyway, and then I just, whatever. Anyway, so I need to paint my own house. But that's great advice. But and the thing too, it's funny because this is a live show and it's important, but for me, it's the podcast. It's a podcast.
Yeah. The podcast is where like the majority of your engagement is going to be at. And that's cool because the fact is, your audience. And so you know that your audience is more of the auditory crowd and they expect a new podcast at a certain time of day. Whereas your live audience, they don't know, right? Like, they don't know when you're recording. So they might as well just wait for the day that you actually have it all edited and done and it's loaded. They're already subscribed and you're good to go. And then that's cool.
Right. Yeah. So funny. I can do better. Knowing your shortcomings, that's half the battle, right? So I know that you are a big Ecamm fan, and I was telling Stephanie earlier, I purchased it, but I didn't have time to learn it before this show. So we're using Be Live today, but moving forward, I'm going to be using Ecamm. So I'm sure that's one of the tools, but I wanted you to share with our viewers and listeners, what are your favorite must-have apps and tools that you use for your shows to do all the fancy, awesome stuff you do on your lives?
Okay. Well, boiling down to tech, like the way that Lights Camera Live is done. Yes, I use Ecamm and I love Ecamm because I could easily brand my show. I could also create different scenes, right? So I could have my intro video. I could have the scene where it's just me as a talking head, or I could bring up to 4 guests via Skype. Right? That's how we do it on the 360 Marketing Squad. And that's fun. So Ecamm is like my go-to for anyone that's on a Mac. It's like the easiest platform to use out there. It's a one-time fee, you guys. So say bye-bye to monthly subscriptions. It's like $79, one and done, and you're good to go. The other thing that I love is I love using my DSLR. I love using my Lumix GH5 because it makes my broadcast look way different from everyone else that's using like a built-in camera, right? So that's my tech is I actually use a DSLR. The way that I'm able to do that is I have this little thumb drive thing called CamLink. So I take the HDMI cable from my DSLR camera and I plug it into the back of my Mac and then I'm good to go. So that's like my second differentiator for Lights Camera Live. The third tool that I love for Lights Camera Live is my Messenger bot. Like, I have to use my Messenger bot in order to drive people to watch live, right? Because sometimes they're not checking their emails, right? But as soon as I send out a Facebook Messenger bot that says like, hey, Megan, we're about to go live right now. Join me right now. They'll click that button. You see the viewership of live viewers spike up. You're like, all right, cool. I have an audience that actually I could go ahead and talk to now.
Right. And so who does that work? Who does it go to, the bot?
So the bot goes to people that have subscribed by watching a previous episode. So if they were watching and I said, hey, leave the comment, subscribe, and Robo staff will go ahead and notify you the next time I'm on air, that's what they do. I also repurpose my content on YouTube. And so I have this little link that says, if you're interested in being notified when I'm actually live on Facebook, click this link, right? And then Robo staff will still notify you. And then I still repurpose my content. I put it on my blog and I have this little button that just says, click this to be notified when I'm live. So I just have all these different ways for people on how they could opt in. And it's been super helpful in getting live viewers to come to the show.
Awesome.
Yes, Messenger bot.
Hell, yay, messenger bots. Yeah, bots are something that it's on my list of things to to learn about and to dig into. Or I may just have, someone.
Have someone else do it and set it up for you. I mean, honestly, there's so many things that you can do with messenger bots. Like Amanda Robinson, like one of my good friends, like she'll go all bananas at conferences and be like, hey, we just met, scan my messenger bot. And I was just like, okay, right? But for me, like I'm pretty straightforward. It's just you leave a comment on an episode and then I will send you a broadcast as soon as we go live. Simple as that, right? Like you could go down the rabbit hole and do like funnels and all this other stuff. But as a live streamer, as a small business owner, that's how much time I'm dedicating to messenger bots, right? And then I go from there and it's working for me. So just choose how much time you want to spend on it.
No, for sure. Yeah. And I think I am getting to a place where my potential business is going to be like bidding on so much right now that I don't even know that I want to grow, but I do want to grow the viewership on the show and the listenership on the podcast. So, so yeah, I have some work to do as far as that all goes. Yeah, your lighting always is great. I have an SLR and so I need to figure out how to set it up and how to get it to not overheat. I was recording a session at that conference and it just stopped.
Oh yeah. I have a plug-in adapter that plugs into my DSLR. So instead of just using the built-in battery, I take out the battery and it's a battery that's connected to an adapter. So that's how I'm able to go live for like 45 minutes to an hour and a half long without blowing out my camera.
Gotcha. And in terms of your length of show, how do you determine how long or short your show is going to be?
So the run of show for Lights Camera Live is usually going to be about 45 minutes to an hour long. It just happens to be that way. Like I find that the way that the show is structured is we do our intros and then we do the why, what, how, and what if, right? And then we dive into the actual content. So whether it's a side-by-side interview or it's a product demo. And that usually takes about 10, 15 minutes or so. And then after that, that's when all the engagement happens. That's like where all the questions go. They're like, wait a second, how did you do that? Like, go back and explain that. And you're like, oh, okay, cool. And like you go off on and you show them how to do it and then you wrap up the show. But it's always surprising to me because people are just like, no one's going to stay that long, Stephanie. I was like, but you would be surprised. You would be surprised. Like if you're able to really engage your audience, they'll stick with you to the very end. Or if they can't, like they'll come back and they'll message me in the inbox. They're like, where's the replay? I'm like, dude, there's always a replay. I'm like, there's always a replay. So that's like the fun part. It's just seeing like who sticks with you until the very end. And just the fact that if I ever wanted to retarget those people, I know that viewers of Lights Camera Live are the super fans of Lights Camera Live, right? Because they're there and they're engaged and they want to learn and they get really sad if they miss an episode. Like I had some, they're like, why didn't you send out a bot? I was like, I didn't have time, And it's so funny to just have that type of relationship with viewers. And I know who shows up live to watch Lights Camera Live. And so when a new name pops up, I'm just like, whoa, hello, new viewer. Like, where did you come from? How did I find you? Or how did you find me?
Right.
And it's just always exciting because you're just like, oh, and then they realize like, oh my God, she actually said my name. I'm going to stay a little bit longer. And I love live streaming.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like you make someone feel important and they go, whoa, she knows her community. Like she knows that I'm new. Like I said, it's like anything else. Like I have a local watering hole around the corner, right? Like 2 bartenders that were so amazing. And they, from the start, what's your name? And never forgot my name and always made me feel important. And that's like, that keeps me as a customer, right? And that's your viewers, same idea.
Yeah, it makes you feel good. There's that hospitality. They get the little dopamine that drops around there. They get all super happy. You've got that oxytocin. They feel like they have this real relationship with you, which is true because honestly, I could just be like, oh wait, new viewer. Like I know like the first time Jen Cole actually ever left a comment because you had invited her to the show. And it's so weird that I remember that, but I think like when you're live streaming, you're just on this emotional high and you're super happy. And so when you see a new name pop up, you become associated with that. You're like, oh, who's Jen Cole? Like, that's the first time I've ever heard her name. This is the first time she's watching the show. And I was like, oh, and now she's here, which I was like, dude, that's so badass.
Yeah. Well, she's one of my co-hosts.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I try to get my co-hosts to watch live and to engage and, help drop links and stuff when I have them prepared in advance.
That's good. That's
yeah,
good.
I know. Okay. So, let's talk about 360. What is it? Tell me, let's tell I want everyone to hear, since it's this new little venture that you're doing with a bunch of awesome people.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So 360 Marketing Squad. It includes myself, Amanda Robinson, who knows like everything about chatbots, and she's diving into the whole YouTube world. There's Jen Herman, for those of you who have not heard that name. She knows everything about Instagram. So I'm like, girl, step up my Instagram. I call her the Grandmaster. Like, if you ever see her, just call her Grandmaster Jen, right? And then the other person is Mike Alton, who is just like the blogging guru. Like, he has helped me so much in terms of like, Stephanie, that was a great episode. Let me tell you 10 different articles that you could go ahead and repurpose that to right now. I was like, what? Mind blown. So it started off as like a little mastermind. And then we realized, you know what? We all have our separate Facebook groups. What if we just combined our powers with all of our powers combined, right? Let's form the 360 Marketing Squad. So imagine you have this big, hairy, audacious goal that you want to do in 2019, but you want different perspectives from blogging, from live streaming, from chatbots, and Instagram. You post into the group, and then all 4 of us are going to go ahead and jump in and answer your question. So like, that's like the fun part, is because, Jen will give her take on something, and then I could give my agency experience of like, well, this is how we're doing it for clients, but you're getting different perspectives on how it's actually being put to use. So it's not just in theory, right? Like, this is actual experts that have done this. And so the cool thing about it is that the monthly membership is really only $5 a month. And it's just like no brainer. Like, at that point, you get 4 different people, 4 different perspectives. And every month we're giving a new training. So like earlier this month, Mike Alton laid down like his blogging promotionology strategy. And I was like, this is insane, right? Because you think sometimes, but then Mike Alton shows up and you're just like, holy mackerel. He is like on a whole nother level. And so it's so cool just to be around that.
Amazing. Well, and I was just thinking also the fact that like you are agency side, Jen is corporate, Amanda is solopreneur, and Mike is like probably been all of those things, but works for a tech provider, Agorable. Yep. So that you'll also have the perspectives of being in those different spaces as well. Hey, speaking of Mike. Hi, Mike.
Hey, Mike. Yay, 360. Woo. I need to have like some type of like logo sticker, Mike. That way I can just be like 360. Boom.
Put it on a stick. Like
I know, right?
Yeah. That's smart. Okay, so of course this has gone super fast. This appetizer is almost gone. I have 2 final questions for you. One is, if you could have a superpower in your job, like if sky's the limit, if you could do absolutely anything, no limitations, what would your superpower be for work?
For work.
Yeah, for your job.
Man, okay. If I could be like my own photographer, right? Like, that would be amazing. Because then I would just be like, hey, can you do like behind the scenes photos of me actually working? Because there's so much that I do, but I'm so like in the zone and in the moment. Then when people are like, so what is it that you do? And you try to explain it, I'm like, crap, if I just had someone that was like right there over the shoulder showing you how like the magic is made, that would be amazing. So if I could clone myself and be like my own photographer, my own roadie that just follows me, that would be brilliant.
That's a new one too. I haven't heard that one. Have you thought about doing like Brian Fanzo does and just set up a camera and just have it like recording?
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
I would have to think of how to do that, because I'm using my main camera as like my favorite camera for the stuff that I do. So if I were to film like over the shoulder, it would be like my old Canon T6i, right? So that would be one way. But honestly, like, can I cheat? Can I say like one more thing? Like what I wish my superpower would be? I wish my superpower would be that I could speak like 5 different languages, because in that way I could take my content and I could repurpose it and grow my audience, not only just like the English speaking audience, but let's say Spanish or Chinese or Tagalog. Like that would be amazing.
Yeah.
Then it would be like lights, camera, live worldwide. That's
right. Yeah. I need to come up with a new one. Mine is to have Wi-Fi, like internet connection, be everywhere, flawless all the time, no question. Yeah, no issues.
Yeah,
Ever.
that'd be awesome.
Yeah. I mean, we may have to be chipped to make that happen, but whatever.
You know, I'm pretty sure that's probably going to be happening sometime soon, right? Like, can you just get, can you just imagine people lining up for that? It would be like the line out the door for whenever the new iPhone is out, right? Just like, no, 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 just put a Wi-Fi chip in me.
That's awesome. Okay, so tell our viewers and listeners the best way to get a hold of you. How do they find you?
Of course. So, you guys, the best way to hang out and really, really engage with me is to hang out in the Social Media Strategist Facebook group. Lights Camera Live is the show, but the engagement also happens in the Facebook group. So just hang out there. Just search for Social Media Strategist. You'll see my face. Say what's up. Jump into the group and start asking your questions because there's just a lot of content that goes in there. You're in there, and there's a lot of cool people that are in there asking questions about social media and like what's happening in 2019 and so on.
Yeah, well, and I think groups like yours have become better for people that have been around a little while versus the large groups that have the 5,000 people and there's lots of newbies in there, and it's just like it's different,
like the redundant questions. Yeah, it's a whole different caliber, and like a lot of the people that first started in the group were old clients, or there were people from like Social Media Club San Diego, or like from the conferences. So there's just a whole different caliber of level of people that are in there. And plus, I also think just having questions that people have to answer before they join the group filters a lot of people out because they're just like, no, no, I'm just here to steal content or like spam your feed. And I'm like, no.
Awesome. Okay, well, I can't thank you enough for being, I know you're super busy and you're really in demand because you're so amazing. So happy that we were able to get this time to work. And thanks to Jen and Mike, who are definitely commenting, and anyone else who is live, and those of you listening on the replay. Thanks for checking out Making a Marketer. If you haven't yet, subscribe on iTunes, and then you'll get every episode as soon as it drops. So this has been episode 24 of Making a Marketer, and we will catch you next time.